Okay, good morning. So, I wanted to mention a few things about being Buddhist. Um, First of all, just that phrase, being Buddhist, is full of stuff, full of thoughts, okay? And one of the things that I'm doing right now is I'm writing a paper um, that uses phenomenological human hermeneutical methodology in order to explore my experience of becoming disabled and basically realizing my disability is. And I'm at the point where I have to write out the methodology. And I realized that a lot of my disabled identity is wrapped up in um, my whole identity, right? I'm not just a disabled person, but I'm a disabled Buddhist person who has many roles in life. Um, and these roles are all touched by Buddhism in some way or another. And so I titled it, I like to give my papers or my sections of papers titles that mean something to me while I'm in the draft writing process. And then I change them to academic language when need to. But right now it's the ultimate methodology for my self study. And so I asked myself a series of questions and then I started writing the answers. And I want to share the first two questions, um, just because I think that it's important. So maybe you'll get something out of it. I don't know. How First question is, how does philosophy affect me in a day-to-day way? So fundamentally, I'm pragmatic. I'm practical. I'm putting things into action is my immediate thought, um, always in all situations. Like, well, how do I practice this then? So my answer to that was, I am a Buddhist. I take refuge in the Dharma, the Sangha, and the Buddha, seeking liberation from samsara, which is the cyclic nature of existence. And that is such a simple phrase that I hear so often when people are talking about Buddhism and what it means to be a Buddhist. But all those words have meaning for me. They're true for me. So then I asked another question, which was, how does it change me as a Buddhist? Like, does it make me a Buddhist to believe these things? And so my answer there was, being a Buddhist involves my body, speech, and mind, all of me. Because I believe in samsara, the cyclical nature of existence, and karma, cause and effect, I agree with the basic assumptions that the historical Buddha taught as the Four Noble Truths. He taught that life entails birth, growth, illness, decline, and death. At a minimum, this occurs once, and because we desire permanence, we suffer. If we believe in reincarnation, then this cycle repeats endlessly. Unless we become liberated from the wheel of samsara, this liberation can be achieved through the Eightfold Noble Path. It is also called the path of the middle or non-extremes, and this way is taught as a set of principles by which to live and practices that grow from each principle. And those principles are, all right, and this is how I actually live my life. It's a set of rules, all right, and there's 8 of them. Right resolve, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration, right view. I do my best to do all these things. And I remember when I was younger, I didn't understand what the right part was. Like, how do you know what is right? And over time, I've understood that what is right is what feels right. There's like a compass internally inside me that points to the rightness always. And I am perfectly aware of when something is right and when it is not. And I don't know how I learned that. Like, I really don't. It just is there. So, right resolve, the first one, means cultivating an understanding of those Four Noble Truths and understanding that that's it. Samsara is what it is. It, and I've had enough, right? That's resolve. And then right speech means speaking the truth with compassion. And right action means refraining from causing harm, death, and suffering. And right livelihood means living within reasonable means and helping others. And right effort means to apply oneself to virtuous actions, body, speech, and mind. And right mindfulness means cultivating awareness of one's actions. And right concentration means developing a stable concentration in order to be able to meditate. And right view means to realize the Four Noble Truths in one's own life and understand them from the inside, live them, like really know them without a doubt. And like after all the experiences in my lifetime, I absolutely, without a doubt, am utterly convinced, and I hope this helps anybody who has questions, but I am utterly convinced that samsara is a real thing. Our ordinary day to day ways of living are ignorant and deluded, and we make mistakes constantly, and because of ignorance and delusions. And if we don't get a hold of our minds and suss out where our mistakes are, there's no hope at all of ever escaping that cyclical nature of like inevitable suffering is going to come because of some mistake, some tragedy, some uh, fault, some awful happening, that we can't deal with, right? So then I wrote 2 paragraphs and then I'll be done, okay? Before I took refuge and began actively applying the above in my own life, I had problems in multiple areas of my personal life. As a child, I struggled with right speech. I lied a lot. I lied because I didn't want to get into trouble. I wanted to avoid pain. So I would make up stories that were more comfortable than the truth than reality. All right. As a young adult, I struggled with right livelihood and right effort. Um, it didn't seem so important to get a hold of my mind. And when things were going well, I didn't feel a need, right? Um, and then my livelihood, well, I was a mom at home for my entire adult life. And it took me a long time to find a way to become a teacher, and which was really like the only path I could see that had any meaning for me, you know. But I was struggled a lot because I was too physically weak to do the physical work that my grandmother and my father did, which is servers. And I tried some jobs like that and I couldn't do them well. It was hurting me. And I didn't have a diagnosis at that time of my EDS, but I knew I couldn't do it long term. It was too hard. And I really suffered. And I didn't know what else I could do. I I knew I was talented in music and art. I didn't see that making me a living in any way. Um, I didn't know what to do with myself as a youth, you know, a young adult. And parenting or mothering was so important to me that it became obvious to me that teaching was an extension of parenting, was a way of parenting others' children when they were not able to be there to do the job themselves, because children actually do need constant input and constant, not just supervision, but they need a constant connection, um, because that's how they learn. And they need to have somebody to emote with, and they need to be able to uh, play freely and experiment in their relationships. And they need an adult around at every moment to help that go well and have them good, positive experiences. So I figured, okay, I'll be a teacher. Anyway, I have always struggled with the right view, right concentration, and resolve. I was not convinced that samsara was a real cycle that applied to my own life. I thought of it abstractly. How could life be suffering when I experienced both joy and despair? I came to realize that the extremes of joy and despair were both problematic because they are both impermanent, and that impermanence itself causes the changes that I had trouble adjusting to. And one of the things that I realized was truly impermanent through my depressions and my anxieties is that my own self, that I never really fully realized, like identity issues, right? I felt like my own self, and I still feel like my own self is a very illusory thing. It's not real, really. And that gave me trouble. However, okay, here we go. Karma. The law of cause and effect was really easy for me to accept. But how could I understand reincarnation when I was raised in Western secular science worldview? Only recently, with the research of Western science in the domain of physics, does an Eastern worldview have some credibility, which is so, nauseating, really, in Western racist superiority mindset. Blah. That science would be somehow superior to the science of the East, which has been going on longer, like so much longer, and is based on direct experience, which is like, well, I'll get to that. However, I do not have the knowledge to check this knowledge for myself. I can't check physicists' work. I have to accept and rely on the expertise of others and my own experiences. And because when I was 14, I had a revelatory dream that I could not explain any other way, I came to believe in and be certain about reincarnation. I know that I've had past lives and I have been reincarnated. I am completely certain of this. And much of my spiritual seeking was directly motivated by wanting to understand my dream. Now, it happened in a dream, but it was also like a vision, you know, and it gave me the certainty that kept me coming back to the Dharma teachings over and over and over again, even though it took a while for them to sink in. You know? And even though I came to an intellectual understanding at some point, it was really the experiences that I went through of being a mom to special needs children and having a difficult marriage and divorce and finding love again and understanding that I'm a lesbian, and you know that was an important piece as well. And that was a way of accepting myself. Like once I realized that, it became not important to me anymore, but it's important because I was accepting myself as an ordinary human being and who had ordinary desires that were just different from the norm. That's all, right? So I have further questions that I'm going to answer for myself as I'm writing this methodology. Like I have to figure out, what does hermeneutic philosophy have to do with my research? Why am I choosing it as a methodology, and how can it be implemented to study the self? Anyway, these are very philosophical questions. And every once in a while, it's nice to kind of review one's philosophy of life, you know. And I'm very lucky because I do realize that the basic philosophy of Buddhism is exactly what I believe from my own experiences. And so now I have like no reservations. I can just put it into practice. It's perfect. It's great. I mean, it's not easy, but it's right. Okay, so that's it from me today. And I will talk to you on another day. Be doop, all those things, all those messages. I have to pay attention to them now. All right. I hope you have a beautiful day. Thank you for listening.